If you've seen the 1963 film The Haunting, based on the 1959 Shirley Jackson novel The Haunting of Hill House, then you might recognise the building you see on screen. But this property isn't just masquerading as a haunted building. The Ettington Park Hotel has a few spectres that call the place home. The Ettington Park Hotel is a neo-Gothic mansion located 6 miles from Stratford-upon-Avon in the Stour Valley, which is itself in the English county of Warwickshire. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans have inhabited the area for at least 2,000 years, and it's possible that a Roman villa once existed on the site. Roman coins and pottery have been found, and a Roman road called the Fosse Way passes close to the nearby village of Halford. In 1086, a survey of England and Wales was conducted, and the results were compiled in the Domesday Book. The survey noted what land and resources were available, so that William the Conqueror could see what taxes he could raise. A church, mill, village and a manor house stood on 1,700 acres of land that the hotel now sits on. The manor was held by the C. Wallace, a Saxon thane of Henry de Ferrers, a Norman overlord. The Shirley family descended from the C. Wallace, and they would live on the site for centuries. The house is mentioned twice in the Rolls of Parliament. In 1287, Sir James Shirley petitioned Edward I for restitution of the house after his son Ralph unjustly took control of it. The home was mentioned again in 1294, when Ralph Shirley represented the city of Warwick as the first knight of the Shire in Parliament. The year 1641 saw the demolition of the original house, and a smaller home was built with the remains of the first. Up until this point, the Underhill family had leased the house from the Shirleys for 100 years. Some believe that Shakespeare himself spent time at Ettington. He bought the great house in New Place, Stratford-upon-Avon, from the Underhill family, and may have visited them when they rented Ettington. At the end of the 18th century, the decision was made to make the family estate private. The village that once existed on the land had to move a few miles away. The mill mentioned in the Domesday Book was destroyed. The Norman-style church, which dated back to 1198, was partially demolished. All that remains of the church today is the tower, walls of the nave and the south chapel that contain the family mausoleum. In the 1800s, the house began to take on the Gothic appearance that can be seen today. Although much of this work was carried out between 1858 and 1862, records show that the Shirley family began adding Gothic elements to the home as far back as 1820. The external walls were taken down, and the interior of the old house was built around. A new storey was added, the roof line was raised, new chimneys were created, and round and square turrets were built. The entrance hall was Gothicised and a Gothic stained glass window was installed. Much of this work was designed by architect John Pritchard, and it was his workmen that are part of a rather curious story involving a toad. In August 1859, builders were removing the outer wall overlooking the garden and discovered a live toad in a cavity inside the wall. Everyone was puzzled as to how the toad got inside the wall, as there was no access from the outside and no way for air to get in. It was concluded that the toad could only have gained access during previous work on the house, work that took place in 1740. The toad was kept in a bottle, but it refused to eat or drink. It died 3 months later. To commemorate the bizarre incident, a stone toad was placed in the new outer wall close to where the original toad was found. And the toad wasn't the only one hiding in the house. Ettington has numerous priest holes, which were hiding places for priests during a time when Catholics were persecuted. In 1935, the house became a nursing home before being turned into a camp for Italian prisoners of war during World War II. Exterior shots of Ettington were featured in the 1963 film The Haunting. After this, the house became a club, and a fire damaged the building in 1979. After being left to the elements for a few years, the house and land was leased to the Isis Hotel Company, who started restoring the property. Today, the Grade 1 listed building sits in 40 acres of parkland and is managed by Hand-Picked Hotels Limited. The Shirley family still visit Ettington and owns land in the surrounding areas. And it will come as no surprise that the Ettington Park Hotel is haunted. If you take a CD, what are you doing? Are you not replaying real events and emotions, just as they actually happened at some time in the past, and were recorded on basic materials to be replayed time and time again at a future date? Is it not also possible that certain events, given the right conditions, can have human events impressed or recorded upon them? Then, at some later date, again given the right conditions or atmosphere, a person walks into that environment and becomes the medium by which the recorded events are replayed. The ghostly phenomenon known to us as haunting then occurs. These words were spoken by Michael Kenny, a former night manager and tour guide at the Ettington Park Hotel. It's because of Michael that many of the hauntings at the hotel have been documented. As with many places that are said to be haunted, some of the odd occurrences are not detailed and are the kind of hauntings found in many locations. On many Christmas Eves, staff have seen a candle floating above an Elizabethan oak fireplace. Architect John Pritchard walks along the corridor outside a group of rooms known as the Courtyard Suites. The sound of women singing has been heard coming from the drawing room, the same room that a barefoot Edwardian woman sitting in a bay window has been spotted in. In the library, the sounds of billiard balls moving accompanied by male voices has been heard. This room also experiences sudden changes in temperature, and the figures of a woman and a priest have been seen. An old woman in Victorian clothing has been seen and heard in the conservatory. And one tragic event in particular has left a mark on the hotel. In the 1800s, 2 boys related to the Shirley family drowned in the nearby Stour River, and ever since then their ghosts have been seen both inside and outside the hotel. One female guest saw the boys running up and down the corridor outside her room. But the hauntings, of course, don't end there. The reception area is an active place. The telephone in one room regularly calls the switchboard despite the fact that no one is staying there. Some have seen a shadow by the entrance and the reception desk. And the ghost of Edward Shirley and his dog like to make themselves known. They have been seen crossing the reception area. When they reach the library, they vanish. The Long Gallery is an area that staff find particularly creepy at night. People often report being watched. The spirits of an elderly woman and an army officer like to hang around the last bay window, situated next to the fireplace. The Long Gallery regularly hosts events, and while checking out after a stay at the hotel, one guest complained that she had been kept awake until 3 a.m. by children singing and dancing in the Long Gallery. But as you've probably already guessed, no event was being held on that occasion, and the hotel was quiet on that particular night. The ghost of a servant girl called Mary has been seen heading towards the staircase and in the Oak Room restaurant. Why is Mary haunting the hotel? Is it because she died in circumstances that might be deemed suspicious? After arguing with the lady of the house, Mary fell down the staircase and died after breaking her back. The Old Tower Room is an area where paranormal activity has been experienced. One guest called Stan was staying in that room and woke up one night at 1:30 a.m. because he could hear people slamming doors and moving around in the room above his. He complained, of course, only to be told that there is no room above the Old Tower Room, only the attic. Stan later learned that around 200 years earlier, someone was hanged in the attic directly above his room. The Ettington Park Hotel is also home to a woman in white known as Lady Emma. She is believed to have been a governess. Lady Emma likes to float along the corridors at night and disappears through walls. She can also be seen on the veranda at dusk. Some have wondered if Lady Emma made an appearance after the fire that badly damaged the property in 1979. Workmen clearing the debris became concerned when they saw a white figure looking out of a first-floor window. Thinking that someone had been trapped in the building by debris, the workmen went inside the building to offer assistance, only to find that the room the figure had been seen in had been destroyed in the fire. It's the Grey Lady who seems to be the hotel's most frightening ghost, with those who have glimpsed her describing her presence as menacing. She is sometimes accompanied by a monk, who himself has been seen around the hotel and in the church. But more often than not she is alone, and when she is witnessed she is shrouded in a white mist. Guests who have seen her report being drawn to her, even though they feel terrified. She is regularly seen in the Stour corridor, but sometimes makes herself known in other parts of the hotel. A night porter was unfortunate enough to meet the Grey Lady as he cleaned a fireplace. As he went about his work, he began to get the impression that something, or someone, was watching him. He wasn't sure if he should turn around, but in the end he decided he, quote, might as well, end quote. Coming down the main staircase was a woman surrounded by a white mist. A man called Mark, a guest of the hotel staying in room 7, had a frightening encounter with the Grey Lady. Mark and his girlfriend were trying to get to sleep one night when they noticed that a light appeared to be shining through the curtains. Mark got up to close the curtains, but for some reason opened them instead. Opposite his window was another part of the hotel, and Mark could see through a window opposite into a corridor outside rooms 10 and 11. He saw what he believed to be an elderly woman wearing a grey Victorian dress and a white cap walking down the corridor. What Mark saw was clearly strange to him, as he got back into bed and said to his girlfriend, quote, I think I've seen a ghost, end quote. She, however, didn't seem to believe him. That's when things got even scarier for Mark. A little while later he saw a light shining through the gap under the hotel room door. Because of the light, Mark could tell that someone was standing on the other side of the door. He noted that there was no sound, only light. Mark found himself drawn to the door, and he opened it, only to find the woman he'd seen walking down the corridor stood right outside his room. Mark was, quote, scared stiff, end quote, by the expression on her face. The woman appeared to be distressed. To be more accurate, she appeared to be silently screaming. And if all that wasn't enough to convince you that the Ettington Park Hotel certainly has some creepy goings on, maybe this final story will. A book in the library is known to fly off the shelves of its own accord. The book is St. Ronan's Well by Sir Walter Scott, and employees often find the book open on one page in particular, despite the fact that the spine isn't cracked in that place. The words on the page read as follows: "A merry place 'tis said in days of yore, but something ails it now. The place is cursed. Happy nightmares."